Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and today I want to do part 2 of my rail Zeppelin, or Schienen Zeppelin train, and get it going around the tracks of Brick Nottingham. So I do suggest you watch part 1 of this video first if you haven't already, because in that video I introduced you to the rail Zeppelin, or Schienen Zeppelin, which was a genuine 1930s air-propelled train, and that's what this big propeller is on the back. The real life one was pushed along solely by that as a method of propulsion, and we made the base, all of the power functions set up, including a hack in order to make the IR work with the old 9-volt power box. We did the cockpit that lifts off at the moment, and the basic nose structure, which looks very similar to the original after about 1,000 iterations. Sorry Robin, he's just fallen off. So I guess we should pick up where we left off. And I guess I should finish the cockpit first. And in that setup, we've already got all of the lights, which turn on and off, obviously, when you turn on the battery. And I'm just going to fill in that middle gap that sort of covers and conceals a lot of those wires as well. This Lego seat, I'll just push that down there. And that looks very swish indeed. And I can just add a little control panel onto that, so the driver's got something to press and do apart from these big levers. And I had this left over from a 60036 Arctic base camp set, where it's inside the lab, but it seems pretty appropriate to this. It's white and it's got dials on and stuff, so I thought that could go there and be something for him to use. So I thought I'd get this guy with this rather fantastic beard, get him in that chair, and then he can have the control sticks going up to his hands. And that all looks rather fantastic if you ask me. There we go. And then when we put the cabin on the front, which will be a bit more firmly connected when we've done the sides and so on, you can see his face, hopefully, in that middle pane. It's quite fortunate that we've got that central glass thing rather than a pillar in the middle, because there isn't room to have two drivers like there would have been in the real thing. But yeah, he can definitely see out, so that's good. And his chair is at the right height. And believe me, that took a while to get right as well. Cool, so after that, I'm just going to continue this red stripe. Some people wondered why this area was red, and that's because I'm having a red stripe down the side. And I'm going to continue that with these 1x8 modified plates with the kind of slide on. And that is just going to cover up a little bit more of the sort of ugliness of this side setup, because we've got these little gaps here, and that little rail covers up any unsightly edge and makes it all a lot smoother. So I'm going to have 3 of these on each side, and they'll also give it the strength it needs, really, because otherwise it might be a bit fragile with all those brackets clipped on. So I'm going to do that on the other side as well with these 3, and then we can get on to what is arguably the second most difficult area to design after the nose, which is the really complicated tail section. Alright, red stripes down both sides, and it's looking very swish. Now for the first time, when we put the cockpit on, it can actually be held in place, which looks very good. It's important that it's removable, of course, so we can get at the power switch very easily. And I think that looks very true to the original now, with its very aerodynamic profile. Very good. Now, a lot of people ask where I got the idea for building a Schienen Zeppelin, and it was just by chance that I stumbled across the fact that they even exist by looking at actual Zeppelins, the air balloon type really, and seeing a picture for this on Google Images. But it turns out that it's not actually as rare in popular culture as you might think. There's been countless sort of model railways and toy versions of this train over the many years in between 1930 and now, and it's actually even featured on Thomas the Tank Engine as kind of a guest star, being a character called Hugo, and it's unmistakably a rail Zeppelin train. So I think even though all of those things completely passed me by until very recently, clearly it has been appearing. So I hope my Lego version will be just as popular. Now, if we look at pictures of any of those toys, or indeed the original, we'll see this is a very long train indeed. It's got a very pointed nose. It's got the passenger compartment, which would take 40 people. Probably no space for that with all of my power functions on the inside of mine. And then a very extended streamlined back as well. And that kind of has a very interesting shape, and it's got a very low profile to the tracks where it kind of curves in and then back out and then back in again, with that whole top section enclosing the engine and the propeller. So obviously I'm going to have to try and replicate that in Lego as well. So I'm going to remove our temporary position of our motor and put that to one side so we can reinstall it when we've done all of that complicated structure. And it was very complicated to design this. The nose, even though it looks very simple when completed, was the most difficult, and it looks so beautiful when a simple solution that is elegant comes into being. But you have to go through a lot of different attempts before you get something like that. And the same was true of the back. So what looks very simple now actually took, well, days to get right, to be quite frank with you. So I need to replicate that curved undersurface that's on the front of the train there on the back. And for that, I'm going to use these curved slopes, curved inverted slopes that are held together like that. And then I can add some bricks to kind of integrate it with the back here. But before I do that, I want the stripe to be able to come to kind of a natural conclusion. So with that in mind, I'm going to add some more brackets, but this time the ones that are sort of going up rather than down. And I can do that on both sides before securing them like that. And that means when I connect this whole structure to the back here, it doesn't get in the way of the power functions motor that's underneath there. And you can see that grey stripe and white stripe do continue. And just to bring those to an end, I'm going to do a sort of curving down quarter tile there and a 2x2 equivalent in white there, just so it kind of comes to a end, just like on the original. And I think that looks very sleek indeed, because when this starts curving in, obviously it can't continue around it without sort of resorting to stickers. And then the next bit is to make that curved slope that kind of comes back in again, kind of like a tail, and that I'm going to use curved slopes as well. And it is a little fragile at the moment until we've kind of secured everything together. So you can see I'm sort of struggling to keep it together, but that's looking pretty good, I think. And for the first time, you can start to see how long it's going to be. I hope it doesn't have too many problems going around corners. And then I'm going to use this piece in red, which is kind of in that colour because of the continuation of the stripe as it will join into this whole tail section. And this is kind of one of those cabin tops that you'd often see on ships or on trains as well. So that can go there. Fill in the gap with some 2x4 plates. And I'm going to actually have this stripe turning into the entire rear engine casing. So really I need it to go from a very narrow stripe to a really sort of broad section at the back. And in that respect, it'll be very much like a sort of modern airliner or something like that. So the way I'm going to do that is just by using some slopes to bring that red stripe up into the entire back section. Right, so we're going to have the motor about here, spinning around, just missing this bit. And you can see that it's going to be ridiculously long. So next bit is the engine casing. Now, before I start building the actual surround for the motor, I do want to address one problem, which is the fact that when powered up, this particular combination doesn't go particularly quickly. I mean, you can see the blades going around, which is very nice, but it doesn't exactly look like it's going fast enough to push a great big train very quickly around the track. So what I thought I might do is try and use this opportunity to gear up the speed of this motor. And how I'm going to do that is by using a 12-toothed gear in the motor. And then when I have the shaft that's going to have the propeller on later, I'll have it attached with an 8-toothed gear. And the 12 turning the 8 will increase the spinning speed of the actual propeller, or impeller, as somebody pointed out, because it's pushing rather than pulling. Then that will make it look a lot better. So yeah, 150% of the original speed. So that's that in position. So now I can start to build the surround. And for that, we need to start coming back out again as we try and replicate the original. So I'm going to put that there, and then using similar inverted slopes as we did underneath here, but in red now, I can build the next kind of section. So you see it's getting that really interesting shape on the back. Not 100% identical to the original build, the original train rather, but definitely as close as I can get whilst keeping all of that functionality. So then comes our setup for the gearing. So I'm going to have a brick in there, that there, and then the gear linking with our new one there. So let's push all that in and give that a quick test. Yeah, so that gear is making that one go even faster on account of it being bigger. And that means I can take the propeller off here. And it's very important, of course, this is hanging clear of this back bit so it doesn't whack it every time it goes around. So let's give that another test as well. Ooh, yeah. Very good. So that does look a bit faster, doesn't it? And a bit more realistic. In fact, I can crank it up just a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I like that. That's a good improvement. So I'll stop that and turn that off. And now we can start to build it in a little bit more. And this will be when it starts to get some strength. So more curved slopes, this time the other way up, of course. And this is when I'm hoping that I don't destroy everything I've done by pushing down too hard, just because it won't be strong until we've added the final piece, where we're going to be using these kind of arch pieces all the way along as the roof, but the back section is going to be in red and the rest is going to be in white, and that's now held the tail firmly onto the front, and that'll be all the red sections. So you see it's sort of a stripe that goes up here and comes around to fill that whole area. But I think that's looking really good, and it was a real problem getting this at the right sort of height in order to power this. So the fact that we've kind of gone with a zigzag with that gearing up motion has really made it a lot easier to house the motor, whilst also speeding up the propeller or impeller in this case, because it's pushing. So yeah, that was a really good solution, and that's probably why it took me quite so long. Now, a much more simple part of the design process was choosing which propeller or impeller to use. And the one that I've got on at the moment is probably the best, in that it's black, so it shows up very well, and it's got these 3 blades, and it looks very sort of impressive and noticeable. But it wasn't the only one that we could have used. I sort of played around with the idea of having a really interesting kind of wacky one, just to make it look a bit more space age, in a couple of different silvers. I've even tried a cut down version of this. Yes, I did snip that off the ends just to see what it'd look like, a bit more stubby. Then we've got these really old propellers in case we wanted one in red, but that really doesn't show up very well. And I've got the equivalent in yellow. But what I really quite liked was these really old looking ones in black or even old brown. And I think that looks almost the best for the kind of original look, because the real life one did have all sorts of different propeller combos with 2 blades, 3 blades, 4 blades. So really that's not that fundamental. But just the fact that it's wood coloured makes it look really interesting to me. The other benefit of having one this size, or indeed this cut down size, is that it will actually fit through my tunnels underneath the castle in Brick Nottingham. This one won't, because it's over 8 diameter, and 8 is the 8 studs width is the kind of dimensions of my tunnel. So at the moment this would smash right into that, lose its propeller and not go very far. So I will have to use one of these 2 in my city, but this one I'll continue to use for now, just because it's the biggest and kind of most impressive. Right, so I'll put all of those to one side for now, and we can move on to the sides of this build. Now this is a very tried and tested technique of using slopes here and then using inverted slopes right next to them to create a kind of diagonal stripe. There is actually a tiny gap in between them, but that's been used on all sorts of official builds and other train builds around the world. So that's a tried and tested method that I think is very good, and that really makes it look a very interesting stripe, I think. And then I'm going to use, surprise, surprise, aeroplane windows to go down the sides, because, well, the original had very much that look. And just to make the doors, this is supposed to be the bottom of a door. Obviously, they won't open or anything, but I wanted to make them a little bit different. So I'm going to use light bluish grey, but I also thought I'd change the style of the window. And I'm kind of using these arch ones, still with the dark trans black glass in, but these ones kind of look like castle windows in my mind. But nonetheless, I think when they're on here, they're just sufficiently different in shape as well as in colour to suggest something different, like a door. So I think that works rather well. You can imagine popping that open to get inside and turning left or right. So I like that very much. And now you can start to see the problem I'm going to have with all of these wires. So I'm probably going to have to get very creative in wrapping them around the gaps here and around the two holes through the bottom bit and all the rest of it to enclose this area. But if I just remove one of these red slopes for a moment, or both of them, are they both going to come up? There we go. Then I can start putting in the first roof section, which is just 5 of these white ones as well. And that will pin down everything together. Or will it? Yeah, I have to be a bit careful. There we go. Yes. So you can start to see how we're going to be linking the back with the front. Let me just grab the cockpit. Push that on. Why is that not going on? There we go. Oh, looking pretty good if you ask me. So yeah, I'm going to continue the windows, but I'm going to have to do a lot of folding wires and wire origami in order to make that work. So yeah, I'm not going to do that on camera. Cool. Right, well, I'm using absolutely every nook and cranny to store wire in, including the 2x2 kind of brick that's halfway along the power cable for the lights. I've got that actually built into this underneath section with a lot of the wire coiled up as well. So we've just got the stub of that kind of sticking out here to link up with the other ones. But that's going to free up a lot more space for the rest of the wires, which, well, there's still a lot to go. So you can see all of the wires are successfully crammed into this compartment and the sort of one more towards the front. And I don't think it's too bad. Obviously, we can't fit any passengers in, so you'll just have to imagine that they're all there. But hey, it's looking pretty good if you ask me, isn't it? Yeah? Very good. So I'm just going to put the last major section of roof panels on. Going to squeeze that onto both sides, and that's looking good. It's kind of a sort of ribbed top, I suppose, with all these joins, but I mean, that's just the nature of the pieces that I've used, and it's not such a bad idea. Maybe they're sort of parts of the panels that are joined together to make the thing. And then because I have got my IR receiver, as I like to use power functions on all of my builds, we've got a gap in the roof and a slightly different sort of setup to plug that gap as best I can. And I think that that makes it look fairly smooth from the front, but it won't be fully smooth until we've got the cockpit on. And behold, our rail Zeppelin, or our Zeppelin train. And what do you think of that? I think that looks absolutely fantastic. I'm ever so proud of it. It took an absolute age to design. As I sort of alluded to last time, I showed you over 40 kind of prototypes that I did along the way. And, oh, it's not joined down at all there at the back. But I think it was worth the sort of days and days of effort that it took on all of those different versions to make it work. Because the end result is just very swish indeed. And I think this red stripe really adds to it. And I really like the sort of rail element of it sort of coming out with the doors at the middle and at the front. The propeller section with the engine housing all in a accent colour of red and still looking very smooth and sleek indeed. So yeah, I really like this. And I also like the fact that it's ridiculously long, much like the original was. I mean, I haven't sort of changed that. In fact, I think it might have been slightly longer to scale. I don't know. But mine looks very good. And this grey stripe I really like as well along the bottom, sort of coming to a curved end there. So I might need to straighten some of those tiles, but otherwise I think this is looking rather fantastic. So let's have a bit of a dry run by turning the thing on. There are the lights. Put that back on so you can see that fits very well And that's really a satisfying kind of clip that goes on with. Ooh, nice. And then obviously we can start the engine. And that's going a really nice speed now. I mean, you wouldn't want to stick your finger in there, would you? It's a complete blur. And I think that now looks like it could have the power to propel this train along. Have a quick dry run. Skating around my desk like it's on an ice ring. And I think that is a really good success. So the only thing really that's left to do is to have this thing going around my track in Brick Nottingham, where I think it'll look absolutely amazing. And I must remember to take off the larger propeller and put down my slightly clipped down version so it can fit through my tunnels. Otherwise the dry run won't last very long at all. Okay, so in the Lego room, and I've managed to squeeze the new Zeppelin train on the tracks in between all the other ones, and I could run 2 passenger trains at once, I suppose, but I think this thing's going to be crazy fast actually, so I think I'll take off all the other 3 passenger trains just to give this a clear run at everything. But wow, it looks absolutely great there with its streamlined shape. I absolutely adore it. Just wait till it's all spinning. Right, so let me clear a path and then we'll give it its maiden run. Right, so that's all the other trains removed. So we've got a clear loop of track. So all I need to do is take off the display propeller, left-handed, and put on our slightly less wide one for going through tunnels and train sheds and all the rest of it with. Then I can just pull off the nose cone, turn that on, left-handed. It's all working well so far. Yep, that's back on. And then we can get going. Well, I suppose what we should do really is have it starting off in the station for dramatic effect. So I'll just manually push that in there. Yep, looking very good. It's just about the right height for getting on through those doors. And then if I grab my remote, we can start our engines. We'll get it going the right way. There we go. And off it goes. Now I'm doing this first maiden run very slowly indeed. Yep, because I'm going to stop it as soon as it hits something. I'm just checking it can get... Oh, wow, that looked good. Checking it can get all the way around. Oh, no, it cannot get all the way around. What is it stuck on? And why will it not stop? Okay, part of me was kind of amazed that it got that far around without hitting anything, because I've got so many obstacles in and around my track. And what I think it was doing was hitting this stanchion that holds up part of my monorail tram system. So basically, I think I'm going to have to move that out of the way a little bit, which shouldn't be too much of an issue. I mean, I've got all sorts of ones sort of with different supports on for where they don't really mesh with the surrounding area. So what I'm going to do is just start that process up again. Hold on, get it right. Get the propeller going first. And I'm going to actually have it going backwards just to see if there are any more obstacles just before I try and sort that one out. And it's making it through my bridge and through my expanded train shed. And if I do this very slowly, yeah, you see that's going to definitely hit that stanchion, and indeed it has. So, right, I need to move that stanchion, and then we can give it its second test run, which we can do a lot more quickly. Okay, so all of the spoiling things have been amended in that corner. It turned out there are actually 2. First was this sort of official monorail type support in black that I've had to move 4 studs to our left, but also the last pair of those tan coloured supports, they were all 16 studs apart from each other, but I had to move that last one from underneath the yellow and black striped tiles 8 studs to our right, so it's a bit too close to the other one, to make room for the propeller to go around the corner. So it does spoil a little bit that sort of regular column structure that we've got supporting that, but to be honest, when you've got the town hall in place and so on, you really can't tell. And if you're wondering why that's a little too short, it's just missing a floor that's actually down in the build room with all the Ultra agents in it at the moment. So anyway, with that now corrected, I think I can get this going. So if I turn on the impeller on the back and have it going backwards, we should be able to just squeeze past those things all by an absolute hair's breadth. Let's bring it back forward slowly. Those goals are only just safe. So I think that makes this the second dry run. So let's crank up the speed. And you can't see it that great from where I'm standing at the moment, but wow, it is flying along. Very good. Let's get these doors closed, because I think that's always a good view when you've got it bursting out of the train shed. Pow! Brilliant. Right, so now we've proven that it can go round. I'm willing to let it go at full speed. So here it is in the station, and the train departing on platform 4 is the Zeppelin train. So stand back while we start our engines. Get that propeller going, and it's off. Now we'll do it quite slowly on this first lap, just so I don't get too dizzy, and so I can follow it around without getting the pictures too blurred. And no, I didn't hear any hits around the back. And through the windows of the train shed and over the bridge, it looks absolutely fantastic. So let's crank up that speed now. Pull back a bit so you can see it bombing along. I can barely keep up with it. Let's get some good pictures lower down. So hopefully you'll see it flying along here. Whoop! Had to lift out of the way there a bit. Shall we wait for it to come round? It won't be too long, I don't think. There it is. And let's get one of it going through the station as well. Oh, this is great fun. Oh, you're all going to want one now. Alright, let's try that from a different angle. Engines on. Mind your fingers and hands. Wow, if this thing crashes, it's going to be very, very messy. That's absolutely crazy. It really is like a 1930s bullet train. I'm not sure if I'll go any faster, I'll try. No, I think that's full whack. Well, after a quick battery change, because I have been testing it quite a bit over the last few days, it is now ready to go again. So we'll get that spinning. And as you'll see, I've got my other trains going around, being the cargo train, the underground train, and the tram. Ooh, all on screen at the same time there. That was a bit good. I'm going to hold here just so we can see the subway flying past with the new Zeppelin train in the background. There it goes. Hey, that looked fantastic. Tram, cargo train with a pump wagon, and new train as well. Looking good. Oh. Well, driving that around has been absolutely great fun. I've burned through one battery and I'm on to my second. I've got another one, so don't worry. But I've really enjoyed designing this train. I've really enjoyed building it. It's very different for me. And I've really enjoyed driving it around as well. And I think it's quite a faithful representation of the old one, albeit with a few colour changes and so on. And I think it might be one of the best MOCs I've ever done. But more importantly, what do you think? I definitely would value your opinion and be glad to hear of any amendments you can think of that could make it much better. So as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. And if you value this channel, there are many ways in which you can support it. Do check out all of the links in the description below. And next time on Robin Hood Bricks, it'll be a Wednesday, so it'll be a brick haul, and then back to normal builds on the Friday. And I think we'll be going back to the fairground at the moment, though I haven't exactly decided what with. Maybe another motorised ride. But whatever we get up to, I'm sure we'll have a great time. But in the meantime, I think I'm just going to be doing this for a few more laps. So until next time, see you!